Hikaru Nakamura has earned a well-deserved reputation as one of the fastest, deadliest, and regarded by many as one of the finest in the game. He has clinched the US Chess Championship title in an impressive 5 times. With a peak rating of 28-16, he proudly stands as the 10th highest rated player in chess history. But what unfolds when he faces an 18-year-old chess grandmaster? This is Ramesh Babu Praggnanandhaa, the rising sensation from India, who has arrived with the intent to challenge and potentially defeat Hikaru. Pragg initiates the game by moving his pawn to e4, and Hikaru responds with the pawn advance to d6. Pragg goes for the center with the d4 move, and this sequence of moves transforms the game into the Perk defense. Hikaru develops his bishop to g7, while Pragg positions his bishop on the c4 diagonal to set up an X-ray. Hikaru moves his knight to c6, and Pragg responds defensively by moving his pawn to h3, effectively blocking the g4 square to prevent potential pins without the bishop. Hikaru advances his knight, and Pragg follows up with his queen moving to e2. After a brief pause for contemplation, Hikaru makes a decisive move, launching his pawn forward to e5, prompting Pragg to swiftly opt for a pawn trade. The game unfolds as both players choose to secure their kings by castling to safety. Pragg immediately slides his rook to d1, launching an attack on Hikaru's queen. Hikaru blocks this attack with his bishop, which eventually pins the bishop to the queen. Pragg develops his knight to c3. As the game progresses, Pragg makes a bold move by aggressively shifting his bishop to g5, targeting Hikaru's knight and posing a capture threat. However, Hikaru remains unfazed, recognizing that his knight is adequately defended by his bishop. In response, he takes advantage of a semi-open file by skillfully maneuvering his rook. After a thorough minute of contemplation, Pragg musters up the courage to shift into an aggressive stance. With determination, he advances his knight to d5, a move that showcases the strength of this particular knight. In the world of chess, a knight positioned at the center of the board is renowned as a formidable one, as it exerts control over a greater number of squares within the opponent's territory. Chess is a game of strategy, and so is subscribing to Horsey on YouTube. Do both for maximum enjoyment. Instead of exchanging this strong knight, Hikaru moves his knight out of the way. After a couple of moves, Hikaru launches an attack on the bishop with his pawn. And instead of retreating the bishop, Pragg goes for an aggressive approach by moving it to h6. They exchanged their bishops, and Pragg relocated his queen to c3, building more tension on the knight. Hikaru protects this with his bishop. After a couple of moves, Pragg doubles up his rook on d-file, launching a huge attack. The black's bishop on d7 is very passive and weak, so to support this bishop, Hikaru retreats his knight, adding an extra defender. This move opens up an opportunity for Pragg to advance his queen to c5, and in response, Hikaru gracefully glides his queen to b7. However, Pragg opts for an aggressive strategy, choosing to attack the knight on the right side of the board instead of relocating his own knight to safety. Hikaru counters by launching a pawn attack on Pragg's knight, a move that simultaneously opens up the b6 square for potential threats. Without hesitation, Pragg capitalizes on this opportunity by swiftly maneuvering his knight, posing a direct threat to capture Hikaru's bishop. The pressure on Hikaru mounts as his position becomes increasingly precarious. With trembling hands, he hastily shifts his knight to f4 in an attempt to salvage his position. Pragg captures the bishop on d7, and the idea behind this move is that this knight cannot be captured by Hikaru's queen or knight, because after he captures this knight, he ends up losing his dearly beloved. Knowing that, Hikaru slides his pawn to a5. This allows Pragg to capture the knight, and Hikaru takes back with his rook. At this point, Pragg decides to sacrifice his queen by capturing the rook on a7. Hikaru immediately seizes the opportunity and captures back. Pragg plays a great move. He slides his rook to d7, giving a check to black's king and forcing Hikaru to take the rook with his queen, eventually winning the queen back with his other rook. Pragg again gives a check with his pawn, allowing him to capture a pawn. Following a series of pawn exchanges, Pragg introduces his rook into the game, and then he skillfully advances a pawn, delivering a check to Hikaru's king. With limited options, Hikaru is compelled to move his king to h6. In a masterful move, Pragg slides his bishop to f5, setting the stage for a checkmate in just one move against Hikaru. Recognizing the inevitability of his defeat, Hikaru resigns without hesitation, and Pragg emerges as the triumphant victor of this intense chess battle. Even Magnus Carlsen can't stop himself and praises Pragg, mentioning, "We all want to be like you today."
So I just told Pragg that, yeah, we all want to be like you today.